Let's see. We got it. Gewaldig. Hey friends, what up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today, we're studying Daf Samach Vav, Daf 66 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, Daf 66 is cool, you know what I'm saying? We start the parak of Amon of the Kohen Gadol. It's pretty interesting. It talks about Nichse Melug and Nichse Tzon Barzel. You guys ever heard of that stuff? It's pretty cool. Well, if you're into it. I think it's kind of cool. Like, I learned Ksubis once, and I feel like I didn't really chap what, I was never really clear on what Nichse Melug is and Nichse Tzon Barzel. Is it possible that this sugya kind of is clearer about it than in Ksubis? I don't know, for some reason I didn't really chop in Ksubis. I don't remember. Maybe does it not come up that much, or maybe I just didn't learn it that well. Anyways, who can tell me what Nichse Melug is and Nichse Tzon Barzel? So it has to do with when a fellow and a fella get married. So the wife could bring into the marriage certain things, right? So there's all the sorts of different details, I guess. But the way I'm kind of viewing it, the Nichse Tzon Barzel kind of belonged to him. She brings it into the marriage, and then he could do what he wants with it. Kind of. There are some limitations, but it's it's his. Whereas the Nichse Melug are hers. So, kind of. How's that? Got it? So the Nichse Tzon Barzel are kind of his, and the Nichse Melug are kind of hers. Let's actually maybe look at the Mishnah and try to maybe let's explain Nichse Melug and Nichse Tzon Barzel in the context of the Mishnah. How about that? So says the Mishnah in Daf Samach Vav, Almana the Kohen Gadol, Grusha v'Achalutza the Kohen Hedjed. So if you have an Almana who marries a Kohen Gadol, or a Grusha v'Achalutza who marries a Kohen Hedjed, of course those are situations where they're not actually allowed to be married, and she's not going to be able to eat truma because she would be a Chalala. Hichnisa lo avdei melug ve'avnei tzon barzel. Okay. Now, she brought into the marriage slaves. Now, some of those slaves were avdei melug, and some of them were avdei tzon barzel. So, let's say this. So the avdei tzon barzel, so they're basically his, right? He could use them, he could do what he wants with them. And what that means is, okay, and then the avdei melug are kind of hers. So now we have to go a little bit deeper. So, okay, the way that, so let's say Nichse Melug. So she brings in these slaves into the marriage and they're hers, they're Nichse Melug. And what that means is that if the value of the slaves goes down over time, or if they go up over the time, I mean, they're hers, right? So if their marriage terminates, so she goes home and she takes these slaves with her, and if they went up in value over time, so great. If the value of slaves went down in value over the course of the marriage, well then the loss is hers. They're hers, right? These are avdei melug, they're hers. But then the other thing is the avdei tzon barzel that she brings into the marriage, and they're basically his. But right, and he can use them, he can do whatever he wants. But the thing is, in this case, if the marriage dissolves, so then he has to give them back, and right at the value that they were when they got married, which means that basically, if they went down in value, he basically needs to give the value that they were at the time of the marriage. So they're basically his, and if the marriage terminates, so then he has to guarantee, it's like barzel, it's like iron, right? It's it's a fixed kind of value. And therefore, whatever the value, right, you evaluate the value of these avodim when the marriage happens. And then if the marriage dissolves, so then she gets back these avodim at the sort of value that they were at when they got married. But during the entire time of the marriage, right, assuming that they don't get divorced or whatever, so then they're his, and he can use them, and we're going to see, like, if he dies, so then his children inherit them as well, right? So meaning they're basically his avodim. Okay, so Amon the Kohen Gadol, Grusha Vachlutza the Kohen Hedget. Now in this case, you have a widow who marries a Kohen Gadol, or Grusha Vachlutza marries a Kohen Hedget. Now she can't eat truma because she is a chalala. Now Ichnisa lo Avdei Melug, if she brings into the marriage Avdei Melug, which are hers, so Avdei Tzon Barzel and Avdei Tzon Barzel, which are considered to be his, Avdei Melug lo yochlu b'truma. So the Avdei Melug, which are hers, cannot eat truma, just like she can't eat truma. Avdei Tzon Barzel yochlu, but the Avdei Tzon Barzel can eat truma because they go based on him. Ve'elu in Avdei Melug, and this is the Avdei Melug in Mesu Mesula. If they died, well then they died to her. Ve'mosiru Osirula, and if their value goes up, then then it's hers, right? These Avdei Melug are hers, and therefore whatever happens to them, whether they appreciate in value, whether they depreciate in value, whether they die, right? That it's entirely hers. Now, even though the husband is going to be chayiv to feed them, they may not eat truma since they're hers, and she can't eat truma because she's a chalala, because it's Amon of the Kohen Gadol, Grusha Vachlutza the Kohen Hedget. Ve'elu in Avdei Tzon Barzel, and these are the Avdei Tzon Barzel. In Mesulo, if they died, then he takes the loss, and if they get divorced or something, he's going to have to pay her the value of at the time of the marriage. Ve'mosiru, and if they go up in value, they go up in value to him, right? To the extent that he now has essentially an asset that's worth more than it was at the time of the marriage, but he only has to pay her, he only has to give her the value that they were at the time of the marriage. And he's responsible for, he's responsible for them if they die or whatever, so he's got to guarantee them. So in this case, they can eat truma because they are considered like his, as long as they're married, and therefore he can eat truma. So therefore, the avodim, right, the Avdei Tzon Barzel can eat truma as well. Bas Yisrael shenises l'kohen. Now, in general, if you have a Bas Yisrael who marries a kohen, so she's allowed to eat truma. Right? In general, Bas Yisrael marries a kohen, she can eat truma. V'echnisa lo avodim, and she brought into the marriage avodim, ben Avdei Melug, ben Avdei Tzon Barzel. Now, whether they're Avdei Melug, which are hers, well, she can eat truma because she's married to a kohen now, or whether they're Avdei Tzon Barzel, which are his, he can also eat truma. So in both cases, they can eat truma. Now, when you have a Bas Kohen who marries a Yisrael, so now she can no longer eat truma, right? When she was in her father's house, she can eat truma. Now she marries a Yisrael, she can no longer eat truma. V'echnisa lo avodim, and she brings into the marriage avodim, ben Avdei Melug, ben Avdei Tzon Barzel, whether they're Avdei Melug, which are hers, and she's not allowed to eat truma now, or whether they're Avdei Tzon Barzel, which are like his, and he's not allowed to eat truma because he's Yisrael. So in these cases, they may not eat truma. All right. Very nice. Fact the Gemara, Avdei Melug lo yochlu b'truma. Fact the Gemara, 1 second. So we said that when we have a situation of, Amon of the Kohen Gadol, Grusha Vachlutza the Kohen Hedget, if she brought avodim into the marriage, and it's Avdei Melug, so we said that they're not allowed to eat truma. Why not? Amai? Why can't they eat truma? Shouldn't it be like his kinyan that bought a, right, that they themselves bought a kinyan to Tanya's. We learned in the Brayso. Minayin the kohen. How do you know you have a kohen? Shenosa isha, the kohen avodim, that he got married, right? That he got married to a woman, or that he purchased avodim. Sheyochlu b'truma. So how do you know that his avodim and his wife that they eat truma? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'choyin ki yikne nefesh kinin kasbo yochabo. That if a kohen purchases a nefesh kinin kasbo, right, so this fellow can eat truma. So that applies to his wife, it applies to his avodim. They can eat truma just like he, the kohen, can. And how do we know that if the kohen's wife purchases her own avodim, or if his avodim purchase their own avodim, sheochlu b'truma, that these avodim eat truma? Shenema, as the pasuk says, v'choin kikni nefesh kinyan kasbu yoichal boy. Kinyon shekona kinyan oichel. So if his kinyan made a kinyan, so then they can also eat truma, right? So if you have a kohen and he's got a wife and his excuse me, there's a cat. The cat is making noise. What should we do? The cats have been very, very mischievous recently. I don't know, mischievous is the right word. They're making a lot of noise. Yeah, last night, a cat went slamming into my door, into my front door. I heard like a boom. There was a cat. There were like 3 of them. I don't think they were playing. Maybe somebody one of them I think was very upset. I don't know, I didn't see what happened. What do you guys, what's this? Oh, what do you guys think happened? Why do you think that one cat was upset? What do you think happened? Alright, well he's quieted down, let's go back there. So we say that, what do we say? Who can tell me what we say? So the Gemara wants to know, I don't understand. If a fellow's wife buys her own avodim, so they can eat truma. So why don't we say the same thing over here? So you have the Amon of the Kohen Gadol. And then, if she has Avdei Mulug that she brings into the marriage, shouldn't that basically be the same thing as a fellow's wife purchases avodim? The avodim can eat truma. So answer the Gemara, Kol ochel meichel, kol she'ein ochel, eino meichel. So the Gemara says, well, look, if you yourself can eat truma, so then your avodim can eat truma as well. But if you yourself can't eat truma, then your avodim can't eat truma. So kilu, when it comes to a kohen and he's married and he's got a wife and his wife buys avodim, so the avodim can eat truma because she can eat truma. But in this case, Amon of the Kohen Gadol, she can't eat truma. So then, on her account, her avodim cannot eat truma either. Velo, but is that really true? That kol she'ein oichel, einoi meichel, very oral. But what about you have a kohen who's an oral, doesn't have a bris milah? V'chol atmeim. Or what if you have somebody who's tamei, right? What if you have a kohen who's tamei? She'ein an ochlin. They can't eat truma. An oral, a tamei, they can't eat truma. Umeichilin, and yet their avodim would be able to eat truma. So if you have a kohen who's an oral, so he can't eat truma, but his avodim can. So hasim pumayu koivlu. Well, that's just like a toothache. I don't know. I don't know if it means a tooth. Does a toothache go away? I don't know. Gotta ask my dad. Does a toothache go away? It probably depends what the problem is. But anyways, a person's mouth hurts, as a cold sore. What's a cold sore? What's a canker sore? They're the same thing? Dennis? I don't know. Sharna? I don't know. Dad? Let's go weiter. So it's like your mouth hurts. So it'll go away eventually. So those are temporary, right? As opposed to, right, to do an oral. There's a solution there. A tomei. It's not tomei forever. So in that case, their avodim can eat truma. But this is a situation of Amon and Kohen Gadol. She's now a halala. So that's permanent. V'arei mamzer. What about the mamzer? She'eino ochel u'meichel, that he can't eat and he's meichel. Who can tell me what this case is? So he's talking about a case where you have a Bas Yisrael. She's not a kohen, she's a Bas Yisrael. She marries a kohen. Okay, she marries a kohen. Okay, fine. Now she has a daughter. Alright, fine. And the daughter marries a mamzer. Okay. They have a yingel, they have a baby. Okay. So what just happened? So you have a Bas Yisrael. The Bas Yisrael marries a kohen. They have a daughter together. The daughter marries a mamzer, which of course is not allowed. And then the child that they have is not going to be able to eat truma. Now, the mother, meaning the daughter of the Bas Yisrael, the mother of this child who was born from the Bas Yisrael and the mamzer, right? So the middle mother dies. So now here you have a situation. Oh yeah, and also the grandfather died. So now here you have a situation where, remember, so you have a Bas Yisrael. The Bas Yisrael is married to a kohen. As long as the Bas Yisrael is married to the kohen, so then she can eat truma. Now, if the kohen dies, then she's not allowed to eat truma. Right? Her husband's dead. He was the kohen. She's not allowed to eat truma anymore. But if she has children, then she's allowed to eat truma on account of the children. So now, in this case, she had a daughter. The daughter was married to mamzer. They had a child. That child is not going to be able to eat truma, and yet we say that on account of this grandchild who can't eat truma, the grandmother, the Bas Yisrael who married the Kohen initially, she's allowed to eat truma. So here you have a situation of this grandson is not allowed to eat truma because his father's a mamzer, his mother's a Bas Yisrael. So this grandchild is not allowed to eat truma, yet he's meichel on his account. His grandmother was the Bas Yisrael who married the Kohen, is allowed to eat truma. So here we have a situation of eino ochel u'meichel. He himself is not allowed to eat, and that's a permanent thing. He's never going to be able to eat truma, and yet on his account, his grandmother can eat truma. So now I have to find my place. So very mamzer sheino ochel u'meichel omer Ravina kinyan ochel ka'omer. That it's saying that the kinyan has to be the one to eat, right? Kinyan ochel meichel she'eno ochel eno meichel, right? Meaning what we're saying is kinyan, kilu, his wife, right? So if his wife can eat truma, so then her avodim can eat truma. But if his wife is unable to eat truma, or if his avodim are unable to eat truma, right? So then her avodim are not able to eat truma, right? So it's not kol ochel, right? Kol she'eno ochel eno meichel. No, it's right called kinyan. What do we say? Kinyan ochel kamer. Kinyan ochel. If his kinyan can eat truma, so then meichel. So then her kinyanim, her avodim can eat truma. She'eno ochel. But if his wife is unable to eat truma, so then eno meichel. So then her avodim would not be able to eat truma. V'Rava Omar. It says Rava. He says, listen, mida oraisa meichel achle. Look, mida oraisa amone l'koyin gadol would be able to eat truma. But v'rabonanu degazvebu. But it's a rabbi's. Wait, 1 second. No, what am I talking about? Right, that's obviously not true. 1 second. Mida oraisa meichel achle. Mida oraisa the avodim can eat truma. V'rabonanu degazvebu. It's just the rabbis who said that the avdei melug cannot eat truma. Kidei shetomer, that she'll say, look, ani eni ocheles. Look, I'm not able to eat truma because I'm a chalala. Avoda enan ochlin. And look, my avodim are not eating truma either. Zona hi etzlo. She's going to say, so it'll be as though she's a zona with her husband, right, the kohen gadol, or if she's a grusha b'chalutz the kohen edget, hilkach asi lafuka, and it'll dissolve, and the marriage, and sort of the husband will dissolve the marriage. So it says, Rava, look, you asked, shouldn't the avdei melug be able to eat truma? The answer is yes. Midoraisa, the avdei melug should be able to eat truma. However, the Rabbanan said that they don't eat truma, so that they'll do a cheshbon hanefesh, so that they'll say, look, I'm not allowed to eat truma, my avodim are not allowed to eat truma, something is not right here, and the marriage will kind of fall apart. Ravashi Omar says, Ravashi says, look, technically the avdei melug should be able to eat truma. However, we're concerned that what about if the kohen gadol, or if it's a grusha v'chalus to the kohen edget, if her husband dies, well then she'll continue feeding them truma even after her husband dies. But 1 second, if that's the case, that we're concerned that maybe she's going to continue to feed them truma even after her husband dies, then what about a Bas Yisrael? If you have a Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, what do we say in our Mishnah? We said in our Mishnah, if you have a Bas Yisrael who's married to a Kohen, now she's allowed to eat truma when she's married to the Kohen, and if she has avdei melug, then they're also allowed to eat truma. So shouldn't we be concerned that, but what if her husband dies and she's no longer married to a Kohen, she's no longer allowed to eat truma, and maybe she's going to continue feeding the avdei melug truma? Elomar Ravashi, rather says Ravashi, ba'almoneh kohenes, rather we're talking about an almoneh who's a kohenes, right? So when we say almoneh lekohen gadol, we're talking about an almoneh bas kohen, right? So she was a bas kohen, and then she got married, and then she became an almoneh, right? Her husband died, and then when she went back to her father's house, she was able to eat truma, and then she got married to this kohen gadol, and therefore, so what's going on? Ta'asila aruyeh, and she's going to come and she's going to say, look, meikara achli b'truma devei nosha. She says, she's going to say, look, Initially I got married to my first husband. I had Avdei Melug. When my first husband died, I went back to my father's house. And my Avdei Melug were able to eat Truma. I was able to eat Truma. My Avdei Melug were able to eat Truma. In Sibile, I now married this Kohen Gadol, Lehai, to the Kohen Gadol, Achle B'Truma. And my Avdei Melug continued eating Truma while I was married to the Kohen Gadol, the Gavroi, right, my husband. V'hashto hadrili lemilsa kamaisa. And she says, now my husband, the Kohen Gadol, died. I'm now going back to my father's house. And she'll say that, well, just like when my first husband died, and I went back to my father's house, my Avdei Melug were able to eat Truma. So now also I'll say, well, my husband, the Kohen Gadol, died. I'm going back to my father's house. On account of my father, my Avdei Melug should be able to eat Truma. But she's not going to realize that when she married her first husband, she didn't make herself into a chalala. But over here, when she married a Kohen Gadol, she's now a chalala, because it's Amon of the Kohen Gadol. She's now a chalala. And therefore, her avodim would not be able to eat, her Avdei Melug would not be allowed to eat Truma if her husband dies. And therefore, if the Kohen Gadol dies. And therefore, says Rav Ashi, in a situation where you have an almana who's a kohenes, so her Avdei Melug are not allowed to eat Truma, because she might get confused. If they are allowed to eat Truma, then she might get confused if the Kohen Gadol dies, and she may continue feeding them Truma even after his death. And so to sort of prevent that, we say that the Avdei Melug should not eat Truma when she's married to the Kohen Gadol. So that makes sense when it comes to an almana who's a kohenes, that we're concerned that if the Kohen Gadol dies, she'll go back home and then she'll continue feeding them Truma. That's going to be a problem. But what about a Bas Yisrael? What's the concern? If she has Avdei Melug and she's right in almana Bas Yisrael, she has Avdei Melug, and she brings them into the marriage with the Kohen Gadol. So let the Avdei Melug eat Truma. And if the Kohen Gadol dies, she's going to go back to her father's house. Nobody's eating Truma there because she's a Bas Yisrael. So let her, right, so we're not concerned that after the Kohen Gadol dies, she's going to go back home and feed the Avdei Melug Truma. So why not say that by an Almana Bas Yisrael, when she's married to the Kohen Gadol, so her Avdei Melug should be able to eat Truma. Ba'manusa lo pligi rabbanon. We make what's called a low plug. We don't make distinctions. If the halacha is that by an Almana Kohen Gadol, right, an Almana Kohenes, the Avdei Melug are not going to eat Truma. So also by an Almana Bas Yisrael, the Avdei Melug are not going to eat Truma either. Itmar was stated, Hamachnes is Shum Levaila. If you have a husband and a wife, they get married, and she brings into the marriage Tzon Barzel. Nichse Tzon Barzel. Right? She brings in some items, and before they get married, they evaluate the items, what their value is, and she brings that into the marriage, and now the husband can use them as long as they're married, and now the marriage dissolves. And she says, look, I want back these items. I brought in these items. I want the items back. I don't want their value. I don't want money for them. And he says, no, I want to pay you. I want to give you the value. Right? You brought them into the marriage. They're mine to do what I want with it. I just have to guarantee you the principal, right? The amount that they were worth at the time of the marriage. But that's it. I don't have to give you back the actual items. So adin and me. So who's it like? Is it like the wife who says, I want these items back? Or is it like the husband who says, I want to keep the items, I just want to give you the value? Rav Yehuda Amar, hadin imo. Rav Ami Amar, hadin imo. So Rav Yehuda says that it's like her, that she can demand the items back. Rav Ami says, no, it's like him, that, she doesn't have the right to demand the items, only the value, and he can decide to pay her the value. Rav Yehuda Amar, hadin imo, mishum shvach beisavir, didahave. So Rav Yehuda says that, we follow her because, these are things from her father's house, and she could take them back with her. Rav Ami Omar Adinimo says, Rav Ami, the din is with him, came to Omar Mar, since we said in Mesu Lov, Osiru Lo, since we said in our Mishnah, that when it comes to the Avdei Tzon Barzel, that if their value increases, so then he gets the gain, and if they die, so then it's his loss, and he has to pay back their value at the time of the marriage. And since he's responsible for their outcome, so therefore they're allowed to eat truma. So therefore, he's responsible for these items. They become his, and therefore, if he decides that he just wants to give their value and he doesn't want to give the actual items back, it's in his right. To which Rav Safra says it doesn't say that they are his. It just means that he's responsible for them. If something happens to them, then he has to guarantee them. But they're not necessarily his, and therefore Rav Safra argues that you wouldn't necessarily be able to say that these are mine and I'm just giving you the value. And now frag the Gemara. Now wherever they eat, wherever Chayv and Achrayus eat truma, right? Meaning our Mishnah had said that when it comes to the Abdei Tzon Barzel, so the right, if you have Amon L'Kohen Gadol, for example, so Abdei Tzon Barzel, so since if they die, he's responsible. If they go up in value, then they go up in value to him. So he's Chayv in their Achrayus, and therefore they can eat truma on his account. So the kasha is, what, just because somebody's chayav achrayus means that they can eat truma? Wherever a fellow is chayav achrayus, so then they can eat truma. We learn in the Mishnah, if you have a yid, a yisrael, who rents a cow from a kohen, so then he's allowed to feed the cow truma, right? A yisrael rents a cow from a kohen, he could feed the cow vetch of truma vetch. Kohen shesachar par misrael. Now, if a kohen rents a cow from Yisrael, afal pisha mezoi noiseh olav, even though the kohen needs to pay for the food for the animal, lo yachilena karshini truma. So the kohen is not allowed to feed the cow truma vetch. Now, when you rent something, you're chayiv for gneva v'aveda, right? This kohen is renting a cow from Yisrael. If the cow gets stolen or the cow gets lost, the kohen is responsible. So he's chayiv b'achrayus, and yet we're saying that he's not allowed to feed the cow truma vetch. V'tizbet, the Gemara says, but one second, let me ask you a question. Sure, the kohen is going to be chayiv if the cow gets stolen or if it gets lost. But what if some act of God happens to the cow, some random thing out of his, out of his power, or if it gets weaker, or if its value goes down while he's renting it? Is he chayiv for that? No. So sure, he's chayiv for certain things. He's chayiv for gneva v'aveda. He's not chayiv for everything, right? If some crazy thing happens, he's not chayiv for that. If it goes down in value while he's renting it, that's not his problem. So therefore, that's not exactly a situation of chayiv b'achrayus. So lodami el l'seifa. Rather, what a better analogy would be. One second, people are yelling outside. People are yelling. I wonder what they're getting excited about. If a Yisrael evaluated the value of the cow at the time that he rented it, and guaranteed that he's going to give the cow back to the kohen in exactly the same value that he's renting it, lo yaichileno kashine truma. Well, then he cannot feed it truma vetch. Avol kohen sheshampar miYisrael yaichilena kashine truma. And a kohen who evaluated the value of the cow at the beginning of the rental and guaranteed that he was going to give back the cow at the same value, so in yachilena kashini truma, so then he can feed the cow truma vetch. So we see that when you do take that, if the kohen does take complete responsibility, complete achrayus, so then actually he can feed the cow vetch, truma vetch. So we actually do see that in the situation of achrayus, you can feed truma. Says the Gemara, Yosef, Rabbi Rav Yosef, B'Shilipirka de Rav Nachman. So Rabbi and Rav Yosef were sitting at the end of, after the Rav Nachman shir. Now Rabbi and Rav Yosef, they don't just sit around. Rabbi and Rav Yosef, they don't just sit around doing nothing. They're not just bored. They don't sit around. Because of the Kamri, when Rabbi and Rav Yosef sit around, they're discussing halacha. Tanikavosa de Rav Yehuda v'tanikavosa de Rav Ami. And they said, look, we have a brisa supporting Rav Yehuda, we have a brisa supporting Rav Ami. Who could remind me what Rav Yehuda says? That if the wife brings into the marriage these items of tzon barzel, she could say that, she wants the physical items back. Whereas Rav Ami says that, no, it's up to the husband. If he wants to give back the physical items, fine, but otherwise he can opt to give the value. So Tani Kavasa de Rav Ami, Avde. So we have a bright. So here's the bright supporting Rav Ami. Avde tzon barzel yotzim b'shein v'ayin leisha v'lo leisha. That if you have these avde tzon barzel, right? If she brings into the marriage these avodim and they're tzon barzel avodim that they're considered his throughout the marriage. So then, if he knocks out a tooth from the eved or an eye, so then the eved goes free. Right, leisha v'lo leisha. If he knocks out the tooth of the eye, but not hers, because they're his, they're considered his. They're nichsei tzon barzel, they're not nichsei maluk. So we see that they're considered his, and therefore he should be able to choose. Right, going back to nichsei tzon barzel, does he have to give back the item, or can he give the value? It's up to him. They're his. Tani kavasa de Rav Yehuda, and now we have a brisa supporting Rav Yehuda who says that she could demand the actual items. Hamachneses shum lebaila. Right, a woman who brings into a marriage evaluated property, i.e. tzon barzel, imrotza abal limkor lo yimkor. If the husband wants to sell them, he's not allowed to sell them. Not only that, even if he brought items into the marriage, imrotza abal limkor lo yimkor, he's not allowed to sell them. Machu shneim lefanose. If either one of them sold these tzon barzel items because they needed money. This was an actual story that came before Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. And Shimon ben Gamliel says that if the wife had sold these items, the husband can go and chapa marayin. So what do we see? So we see in this case that when it comes to tzon barzel, you can't actually sell the physical items. The physical items themselves are significant. You can't get rid of them, and therefore, if the marriage dissolves, she could demand back these physical items. They're not his to take. So says Rav in the name of Rav Nachman that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda, that she could demand back the physical items. Rav says to Rav Nachman, what about the brisa supporting Rav Ami? To which I guess Rav Nachman probably answers that, look, even though yes, we do have a brisa supporting Rav Ami, we also have a brisa supporting Rav Yehuda, but even though we have a brisa supporting Rav Ami, still, it makes sense to say like Rav Yehuda that because these are these sort of items that she brought from her father's house, she's allowed to demand them back. There was a certain woman that she brought into the marriage a cloak of fine wool as part of a ksuba, so it was nichsei tzon barzel shachib, and then her husband died. Shaklu yasmei. And the orphans took the cloak, and they used it as tachrichin, as shrouds for their father. Rava says, Rava kanya misna. Rava says that she can't, even though it's tzon barzel, she cannot take this cloak anymore. They used it as shrouds. It belongs now to the deceased as his shrouds. Didn't we say that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda, that she's allowed to demand back the actual item? So Rav Kahana responds, Milo moder Rav Yehuda de mechusa govaino. But doesn't Rav Yehuda admit that it's still lacking being chapt? Meaning, she brought into the marriage this fine woolen cloak as nichsei tzon barzel. Now, he died and she wants the cloak back, but she hasn't taken it back yet. So she basically has a lien on the cloak, right? There's this cloak, and they can't do anything with it. She has a lien on it. However, they used the cloak for tachrichin. Now, shrouds are considered hektish, right? They're also ba'ano. V'rove l'taime, and Rove is, according to his reasoning, the Omer Rove hektish chomas v'shichur mafkir midei shibud, as we saw recently, that hektish, chometz, and shichur mafkir midei shibud, that when you have a lien, such as over here, there's a lien on this cloak, but then it was made into hektish, because it's also ba'ano when it was used for shrouds, as for a mace. So then the lien goes away, right? Mafkir midei shibud, it makes the lien go away. We say the same thing by right? If you have chometz that a Gentile has a lien on, comes Pesach, the lien goes away. V'shichur, as well as a slave who was freed, it kind of undoes whatever lien was on him. Okay, fine. So even though, yes, there was a lien on this cloak, it was not collected, and then when it became Asur Ba'ano, when it was used as a shroud, so then the lien went away. Amr Rav Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, Chnisa lo shnei kelim be'elev zuz. If the wife brought into the marriage 2 vessels that were a total of 1,000 zuz, each vessel was 500 zuz, v'shibchu v'amda al shnei alafim, and then they appreciated, right, they doubled in value, and now they're worth 2,000 zuz, right? Each vessel is now worth 1,000 zuz each. So if they get divorced, so then one of these vessels she could take for a ksuba, because they're nichsei tzon barzel, right? So he only has to guarantee their value at the time of the marriage. At the value at the time of the marriage was 1,000 zuz for both of them, for a total of 1,000 zuz. Now, but when they get divorced, they doubled in price. So now, but again, it's tzon barzel, right? It's barzel. It's like iron, right? It doesn't change, doesn't move. And it's, right, so what she's owed is 1,000 zuz, i.e. one of the vessels. So she could take one of the vessels for her ksuba, which is what she's owed. But now ve'echad, and for the other one, which she wants to take back, nosen is dam and v'notato, she has the right to buy it back, right? Meaning he can't hold on to it. You know, he also doesn't have to give it to her for free, right? He owes her 1,000 zuz, not 2,000 zuz. But she has the right to say, okay, but I do want this back, so I'll pay you an extra 1,000 zuz, but give me back that other vessel. Because it's sort of what she brought from her father's house, and she's going back to her father's house, she could take it with her. So the Gemara wants to know what? So what's the big chiddush over here? That she could take these things back? We know that was machlokas between Rav Yehuda and Rav Ami. Rav Yehuda says that if she wants, she has the right to take back her vessels. To which the Gemara answers, well, I may have thought to say that when she has the right to take it back is when it's for the ksuba, right? If she brought in these 2 vessels for a total of 1,000 zuz and then they get divorced and they still have the same value, so then she could take it back. But I may have thought that in this case, where she's already got the value of her ksuba with the first vessel, so maybe then he's allowed to hold on to the second vessel. Maybe she doesn't have the right to demand it back and to give money instead. So Kamash Milan, that no, even in this case where she's already received the value of these items, still she could say, I want back the items themselves and pay him the money and take those items back. Friends, that was Daf Samach Vav Masechta Yevamos. I thought it was a very interesting daf, right? This distinction between nichsei mulug and nichsei tzon barzel, that when you have, right, if the wife brings avodim into the marriage, some of them she retains for herself. Those are the avdei malug, they're hers. Whatever happens to them, and that's right. And if they die, then she lost them, right? They're hers. And then there's the avdei tzon barzel, which she brings into the marriage, and they're considered his. If they die, then it's his loss. He has to guarantee the principal, right? And Rashi points out, by the way, I didn't say this, but the reason why it's called tzon is because tzon apparently was a very common thing that you would use for this. But it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with sheep. It could be like avodim, for example, like we said over here, or it could be, apple orchards or whatever it might be. Okay, we said that in the case of an almana l'kohen gadol, so then if the avdei mulug would not be allowed to eat truma because they're coming on her account and she's a halala now. Whereas the avdei tzon barzel would be able to eat truma because they're coming on account of the kohen gadol, and the kohen gadol would be allowed to eat truma as well. We then got into an interesting machlokas. Well, then we asked, But one second, if we know that if a fellow's, right, if you have a Kohen and his wife buys avodim, so the avodim can eat truma. So why can't they eat truma over here, even if it's the right, avdei malug? So then they should be able to eat truma. So he said, well, if she's able to eat truma, so then her avodim can eat truma. But if she's not allowed to eat truma, so then the avodim are not able to eat truma. Then we saw the opinion of Rave, who says that actually mida oraise, these avodim, the avdei malug, should be able to eat truma, except that we don't really want the almana to be married to the kohen gadol because it's a lav, it's not allowed, and therefore we say that the avdei malug do not eat truma, so that she'll kind of do a cheshbon on nefesh and say, look, I'm not allowed to eat truma, my avodim are not allowed to eat truma. This is not a proper marriage, and then it'll kind of dissolve. And then we saw the opinion of Rav Ashi, who says that we're talking here about a kohenes who is an almana who marries a kohen gadol, and there in that case we're concerned that if we allow the avdei malug to eat truma, well then she might think that they can eat truma also if the kohen gadol dies and she goes back to her father's house. She might think that they can eat truma on account of her father. So to prevent that, we just say, look, even when they're married, they cannot eat truma because she's a halala, and then certainly after he dies, then they won't be allowed to eat truma, the avdei malug. We then saw machlokus between Rav Yehuda and Rav Ami when it comes to nichsei tzon barzel. Is it like Rav Yehuda that she can demand the actual items in return, that she wants the actual items back, or is it like Rav Ami who says that the husband can decide to just give the value back? We seem to say that the halacha is like Rav Yehuda, that she could demand back the actual physical items because of sort of the shvach beis avia, the things that she brought from her father's house that she's going to take back with her as well. Friends, that was the Daf Samach Vav Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.